We're back.
We are back.
Yes. We're back to read your book, Memories of a Healer. We have the healer here. He
The
still
healer
have his
now
memories.
in the perfect disguise of the healer.
Yes.
Poncho and a new hat.
Yes.
It's real leather, not like the other one. That was something more or less. No, this is real leather. It's okay?
It's okay.
You can do that?
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. Okay.
Okay, so we start to read. We start to read the first real chapter of your memories. We finished the preface and the introduction, and now we begin with every beginning is difficult. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Every beginning is difficult. How strange it sounds to me to live in 2017 and report that my father was born in 1897. 1897. That's a really long time ago. That's a different world.
Mm. Mm.
My father was 24 years older than my mother, and they both came from Erfurt, where I was told my father was the richest man in the city. The building in which the Erfurt city administration is now located was my parents' former home. My two older siblings, a brother and a sister, were also born there. I still remember my mother's words. It was right after the end of the war. We had no food and your sister was close to dying. As I ran down the stairs of our house crying, hoping to find something to eat for her, I met a young woman. The woman held my arm and asked why I was crying. I explained my problem to her and she asked me to wait a while. The young woman disappeared, only to reappear again after a short time, with milk, flour, eggs, and other ingredients to make a few meals for my daughter. This young woman was an easy girl, a prostitute. She saved your sister's life. Never think badly of people, no matter who or whatever they should be in their life.
These were the words of my mother to me.
That's a beautiful lesson.
Mm. Mm. My master said, be careful, you never know who is in front of you. You never know who is hidden inside of that person. The person or an animal.
Yes.
So treat with respect everyone.
Well, it's a bit like your disguise, no? If it wasn't for your disguise, it would be harder to determine.
Yes.
After the end of the Second World War, my family moved to the small town of Hameln. This is where they started their business. They sold replacements for cars, and from what I was told, the business was very successful. And here I saw the light of this world. Several years had passed since my siblings were born, and from what I was told, my mother wasn't exactly thrilled about having another child, a late arrival. According to the stories, she tried to persuade the young life, me, to leave his cozy and warm abode with a few roller coaster rides. But apparently I clung tightly to the walls of the placenta and refused to enter this world prematurely. Well, that's quite a story, no? Of how to try to...
But until today, I don't like to go to call that a ferry ground or
A fair, yeah.
a fair.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Or an adventure park or something like that, no?
No.
I'm not sure I enjoyed these ups and downs. Maybe not. And it's possible. That's why I'm still afraid of heights to this day. Who knows? Now I was 3 years old. At this point, a gentleman named Hubert appeared in our home. Later, we all called him Uncle Hu. He showed up with a small van and made a living selling chocolate. Maybe due to the chocolate, all of us, the whole family, liked Uncle Hu, especially my mother. But certainly less so my father. This chocolate seller gradually became my mother's lover. Sometime later, my father decided to move to Hanover, a larger city, in the hope of expanding the business. So my parents sold the house in Hameln, and everyone, including Uncle Hu, set out for a new, promising future. A large limousine was purchased, a BMW V6. At that time, it was almost like driving a Rolls-Royce today. A huge house was rented, and the best conditions were created for a triumphant entry into the new hometown. Living in these circumstances made me realize that I belonged to a wealthy family. A realization that didn't take long to require correction. However, the family circumstances were not exactly normal. Neither today, nor in the years around 1916, could these circumstances be described as normal. Uncle Hu was now the one who shared the bedroom on the top floor of the house with my mother, while my father had his room on the ground floor. To ease his dissatisfaction, he would occasionally invite one of our domestic servants to this room, much to my mother's discomfort, although she had no doubts about sharing her room with the so-called Uncle Hu. The memory I have of my father is of seeing him sitting on the sofa in the living room, almost always alone, smoking his cigars. My brother, my sister, one of my aunts and her son and daughter, my mother, Uncle Hu, and my father all worked in our shop. The siblings' fiancés joined us later. My father often went on business trips to find new clients, and I still remember running down the street to see if he had brought me anything when he returned home. And he usually had a gift for me. It may be that the strange circumstances in our family brought our company slowly but surely closer to its demise. Uncle Hu was a very positive person, kind and skilled with everything that had to be done with his hands. But my father was a charismatic person. I remember a family conversation in which it was suggested to send my father to the bank to apply for a new loan for our business. They said about him that when he entered the bank, people moved aside and gave him the right of way. He had something that earned him respect and esteem everywhere. But the moment came when even his charisma was no longer enough, and the bank refused any further payment. Remembering all these events makes me feel at ease. Here I describe what I experienced at that time and how I experienced it. Looking back, I feel a great sense of gratitude, appreciation, and love for every minute I spent in my life.
Yes, don't look back for difficulties in your life. Don't come with that story, I have a trauma. No, life is a school where you have to go through and see it in a positive way. Whatever happens in your life, whatever happened in your life brought you to the present moment. And if that present moment is more or less okay, then look back and say thank you. No one asks you that you have to feel happy when difficult times are there. No, then they are difficult, and you name it difficult, and you do not agree with that moment. But in the end, the difficult times are the times that are pushing you forward. And you can simply see it in a different way. I was always alone, no one was taking care of me, but I could step out of the window and go wherever I wanted because no one was looking for me. So that was wonderful. No, on the other hand, I was missing so much attention or love or care from my mother that I would go in the wardrobe. There was a coat, long fur coat, and I would go in there to smell her perfume. I remember that.
Going to smell the coat, to smell the perfume, to smell her?
Of my mother, to smell her. Because there was hardly never a hug or something like that. But I did it with a coat, no problem. I figured out my way how to get these things.
When I was 5 years old, my mother and Uncle Hu took me on vacation. It was the only time I went on a trip with them. We drove to the Black Forest. Uncle Hu, who was an adventurer, had given me a small pocket knife. Together we built a water wheel by a narrow stream out of thin willow branches which we cut to the right length, each one with his own knife. I brought one of these sharpened branches back to our hotel. There was a large swimming pool there. Since I was a little afraid of water, my mother bought me an inflatable duck. This duck floated on the water and was intended to encourage me to also enter the wet element. But it was just too cold for me. I didn't want to go into the water. The adults tried to persuade me, but no. I took out the sharp willow branch and stabbed my plastic duck. From that moment on, everyone in the hotel called me Entenpiker, the one that poked the duck.
So, take care. If you hear a strange sound on the video, like, it's not me, it's a big dog sitting next to me. She is falling asleep. So.
Another experience I had on this vacation was visiting a very old woman in a lonely, dark wooden hut. Later, my mother and Uncle Hu kept telling me that this witch house seemed scary to me.
Yes. And maybe there was something that gave me another kick to go forward, to look for what I was looking for. You know, there are certain moments in our lives, in the same moment you do not realize, or there simply maybe I was too young, but maybe there was something, a look from that woman, a kind of spell, a positive spell or whatever, just to say, look, that young guy, we open the future for him. So again, take care, you never know who is in front of you. And that can be not only a human being, that can be an animal, or that power is coming from that animal. So treat with respect.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah. There's that, when you said treat with respect also the animals, that reminds me always of the animal communicator.
Anna Breytenbach.
Anna Breytenbach, yeah. And that beautiful documentary about her and the panther. You want to tell the story?
Well, you have to tell that now.
No.
It's quite long.
We have time?
Okay, so there's this lady who supposedly can communicate with animals, and there's a couple from people from the Netherlands living in Africa taking care of abandoned or mistreated big cats like lions, tigers and so on, and panthers. And the man, he has a very close contact with these animals. He's going into the cage, these animals are coming, they're jumping on him, he's cuddling with them. So he has a really very close contact. But there's one black panther, and there's no way with him. He's in a cage, the cage is open, he could go to an open ground, but for several months he's only in the cage, he does not go out, and anyone coming close, he will go for that person. The owner, he said, I once tried to go into the cage, and the panther sent me for 1 week to the hospital. So there's no way. You come close, and the panther will and you cannot get close. So this Anna Breytenbach heard about it, and they went there, and the owner of that place, he said, well, look, I have a very close contact with these animals, and so I can feel that they are hungry, thirsty, that they have some health issue. I can feel that, and I treat them. But to believe that someone is able to communicate with an animal, I don't believe that. So this Anna is coming there, and she's sitting in front of the cage of that panther, and you see the eyes of the panther, and he does not make any noise, he does not go for her, and the panther is simply going into trance. You see his eyes, and the eyes are going. He's going away, completely calm. And then that lady starts to talk and says, look, they call him Diablo, which means like devil. And she said, the first thing that he is telling me is that he does not agree with that name, because there's a very great spirit living inside of him. He's telling me, look, what is inside of me, this shape of a panther, is much bigger than all of you together. So I require a certain respect. I do not agree with that name. And then she said, now he's asking me for 2 little panther cubs. They rescued him from a zoo, and there were these little panthers next to him in a cage, and he's asking me what happened with these little panthers. And in that moment, the owner and his wife, they remembered that it is true that there were 2 little panthers next to him. They forgot that, and they said, look, this lady, Anna, there was no way to know that because no one told her, because we forgot it ourselves. And the man starts to cry, tears rolling down. And then the next day you see the man approaching the cage, and he said to him, to the panther, look, we decided to change your name, and we call you Spirit. And from that moment on, the panther made a noise. They make, oh, but that's a welcoming noise. It's not going for you. No. Oh, oh. And he said he made it, I think, 19 times. He never did before. He was completely relieved. And then the first time, the same day or the next day, he went out of the cage into his free ground, climbing up on a big log of wood, sitting there and feeling happy and okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should do that. We should don't think that a dog is just a dog. A dog wants to be your friend. It's something different. It's not a dog. It's a being that has the same value as you, or maybe even more.
Spirit, soul.
So no, treat them with respect. I remember now the story in India. We had a very big black dog before, and
Here,
and we were invited in India in a tent with these sadhus, and one sadhu came with 2 big black dogs. And so I was happy to see a black dog. We had our dog to put to sleep because he was very ill. So I was happy to see that black dog. And so I started to cuddle the dog. And the sadhu, he looked at me and he said, don't treat an animal like that. That animal deserves respect. That animal is not what you think it is. And I had a shawl around my neck, and the sadhu said to me, would you allow me to send the dog to you to take your shawl away? And I said, yes, of course, you can. And then I asked my companion later, you remember the sadhu talked with the dog, he said something to the dog? And she said no. And I remember he did not.
no sign.
Just
also.
no sign, nothing. Just the dog, after a moment, came towards me, took the shawl, and started pulling until he brought the shawl to his owner.
Yes.
So no, don't take everything for granted that you know what it is. No, we don't know what this world is. We don't know. Observe the world.
And what all is possible.
Be grateful.
And what all is possible.
Yeah, everything is possible.
After
Everything.
we watched
Everything.
Anna Breytenbach, the documentary, maybe we'll link it in the comments. I started to communicate with our dogs, sending thoughts. When I go out for a walk, I don't tell them anymore whether we go left or right. I send them 10 meters before a thought, and most of the time they go that way. So there is, now it could be coincidence, of course. I choose to believe that there is more.
That's it. You choose to believe.
Yeah.
And if you choose to believe, and if you observe, you will find that there's more. But you have to keep that alive. You need the wish to see a more colorful world, a spiritual world. If you don't have the magical world, if you don't have the wish, you will not see it. It has something that has to come out of you. You want it. It's like a little child in the beginning. You want the tree talk to you.
Yes.
And maybe the tree is not talking, but you want it, and you start to hear it, and then it starts to work. So it's you who's going for it. Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
There were some solid, unshakable habits in our home. For example, drinking hot cocoa and eating bread and cheese every Thursday evening. A huge pot full of hot
Why
cocoa.
are you laughing about that?
Because it's such a strange combination. Bread and cheese and hot
wonderful.
cocoa.
We could make one day here. You will see how nice that is.
Yes. A huge pot full of hot cocoa and a large board with various types of cheese were placed on the table. There was also a basket of bread and butter. My brother invited a friend to one of these strange evening meals, a young man who was employed as an apprentice on a neighboring property. This man was originally from Liberia in West Africa, a young black man. During dinner, this friend told us about the customs of his countrymen. Among other things, he spoke of a ceremony that took place once a year on the beach, in which the men, after long songs and dances, tied a basket to their backs and then submerged themselves in the sea and fished with the help of spears. According to the young African, these men often remained underwater for hours before finally resurfacing on the beach with a basket full of fish.
Yes.
So these strange signals, what?
That was for our wonderful massage therapist coming out of her room, and just to tell her, keep it quiet. Don't start to sing or play your drum now, okay?
Everyone present looked at the friend in disbelief. They show up again after several hours? That's completely impossible, everyone commented, all except me. The black man sat at my side. I was always happy when someone came to visit, and the stranger that someone was, the better. And this one was strange, not just because of his skin color. He was the first black person I had ever seen. I also liked him because of his inexplicable stories. The friend had his cup of cocoa next to him. Without asking his permission, I showed him a small 10-penny coin and said, "This is the man." Then I tossed that coin into his cup, where it sank beneath the opaque brown drink. "Do you mean this? They are completely under the water and only come out again after hours without surfacing and taking a breath?" "Yes, that's exactly how it is," was the answer. I'm sure I was the only one who believed this young man. Another unavoidable custom was the weekly bath for the entire family. Not all together. We bathed one by one. The bathroom had one of these old wood or coal stoves with a water heater. So wood or coal fireplace and then a water heater
On top of
that. Or, well, a water
boiler.
The stove not only heated the water but also the room. It was a real pleasure to sit there in the filled bathtub with plenty of warm water until the entire skin was wrinkled and the dirt that was deep in the skin was rubbed off in small rolls from the arms and legs. I remember that too. Not a quick shower, no, a comfortable...
You say, how is it possible that I'm so dirty? Because you cannot see that normally, but then you start...
It's also dead skin.
Like going to the hammam, no, where they do that.
Yes. This is not a quick shower, no, a comfortable rest, a pleasure for body, mind and soul. We children often bathed in the same water, the water of our predecessors. In those years it was easy to live an ecological life. The life was ecological. There was no need to think about it or pretend to particularly protect this planet. 1 bath per week. The other days there was no bath or shower, no hair washing, but what everyone called a cat wash. Little water, short and quick. Certainly in memory of this warm and cozy time here in Andalusia, we converted a former tiny chicken coop into a sauna. After we gave away the chickens because we didn't have the heart to slaughter the older animals, we bought a replica of these fantastic old bathing stoves in Bulgaria.
No, we have not the heart to slaughter the old animals, but then we go to any shop and buy chicken. No? You see?
Yeah.
So
man is
figure
strange,
out
no?
what is really your thing in life, and don't hide everything. No. You can do it, then do it. If you cannot do it, then don't go to the shop and buy. No? As my master said to me, you have to sacrifice a lamb. Well, I cannot do that. You will. And I did. It was not easy for me to do that, but I did. You want to get sacrificed too, or what? What are you showing up here?
Gobi left. I think that was warning enough. So you had chickens, then you converted that into a sauna, and you bought a replica of one of these fantastic old bathing stoves in Bulgaria. You put sauna stones around the stove, and now, once a week, of course, you had a sauna day. We constructed a small anteroom where you can sit down and rest, and there is also a cold shower. A washing bucket, half of a former wooden wine barrel, also offers children and adults, if they are still small, the opportunity to bath in warm water and wait for the skin to wrinkle. Doesn't exist anymore, though, no?
Until we figured out that we are living in Andalusia.
And it's
with
a bit
300 days of sunshine.
No one wants to go to the sauna.
No one wanted to go to the sauna. Okay, yeah.
So now it is a little hut?
A hut for our retreat guests.
Yes.
So they have their own little patio, they have their own space. They can mix if they want to mix with the people of the hostel, but they also can stay alone.
And it's
everyone
a beautiful
enjoys it. It's
little
beautiful.
thing, yeah. You sleep in the old, like in a tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
That was the chicken room.
Yes.
Mm.
Back to Hanover. In elementary school, we received religious instruction. Not from a priest, but from an older woman, a very friendly teacher.
Yes.
I loved the stories about Jesus Christ. This is what I wanted to see in my life. Miracles. Things that no one has been able to explain. This Jesus, he was my hero. I had to meet someone like that. But all too soon I found out that the teacher could tell all the wonderful stories, but she herself had no part in them. She could read the words and tell them truthfully, but she couldn't live them. And that wasn't enough for me. Maybe I had to travel to Africa to meet people who were capable of doing things that we cannot explain with our minds. It seemed as if the black friend and the imperfect teacher were necessary to send me on my search for the wonders of this world.
Yeah. The teacher was not imperfect as a teacher. She was a perfect teacher. But not to give these messages to people. Because if you don't live that, if you do not experience that, then it's empty. And it cannot reach no one. You only can reach a person if you live what you are talking about. If not, it's just repeating maybe another person's empty words. So no, and now thinking about that, it's quite strange that being maybe 10 years old, that I had that perception, that I looked at I liked that lady, I can see her still. I liked her a lot. It was a wonderful, loving person, but I said, no,
Something is missing.
You do not, something is missing. You do not represent what you're talking about. And I want to see that. I want to feel that. I want to be with a person like that.
Or you represent, only the storytelling, only a non-alive part. And then we'll never be able to touch someone.
I mean, the story supposedly had an impact that made me love the personality of Jesus Christ. Listening to these stories, no? So she did their jobs. It brought me closer to that kind of longing. Yeah, but I was really longing. I was not looking for a story. I was looking for that person behind that story.
Something my mother did for me that I have never forgotten is this. One Monday morning, as we drove into the center of the city in our fantastic limousine, I asked her, "This God, what is that?" She looked at me and made a semicircular motion with her right arm in front of my face and said, "All of that." No other word. No name, no explanation, just endless space where everything was accommodated, where everything fit. That's really beautiful.
Well, maybe she was a saint and no one recognized her, not even me, but I cannot forget that. And often I say, look, that was what opened up everything for me. For not to go in a special direction or whatever, to say, it's all, it's all. It's all. All is a sign of that creating source.
It's the influence of the people that we are surrounded by. I'm just, when you're saying maybe my mom was a saint and maybe she opened all of that for me by saying, well, it's all of this, everything that you can see. And then you say that your father was a very charismatic.
Maybe she was a saint in that moment. In that moment it came out of her. Maybe she does not know why she did that. She just did it, but it touched me deeply. No, my father, this charismatic person. No?
And then Uncle who was an adventurer and very good with doing things with his hands.
A wonderful person.
Yeah, you have something from every one of them.
Yes, Uncle Who. We had a black dog, Blackie, and we moved, and we couldn't take the black dog with us. It was not possible to the new house. And he went out, and you heard a shut, and he came in crying, and he shut down the dog. He said, this dog will not end up in a dog shelter. Yeah, that is what now many young women are looking for. They say, I want a man, a real man. Yeah, to be a real man, you have to be able to do that. That is to be compassionate. Not saying I don't eat meat, no. Be a compassionate person. Do things that maybe you would never do in your life, but you do, because you feel that compassion for that animal, you love the animal, and you are able to go out and boom, you will not end up there sitting alone in that shelter. No, you will not. Wow, yes. That man, he went to hospital, 70 years old, they brought him to hospital because I don't remember what happened to him. And he escaped from hospital, and he had an Ala Delta, you know Ala Delta, what do you call that? This like a Drachen. What they now do with this, what they do here in Seymour.
Paragliding.
Paragliding, but before it was like it was not that kind of Fallschirm now, the paragliding. It was a stable thing made out of textile. And he went to the Alps to jump down. I said, if I have to die, I will die there for 70 years, but I will not die in hospital.
And he did that?
He did. And then in the end, later, he had something in the brain, that something...
A clot or something.
Something.
Bleed.
And he went into coma, and I was living already in Spain. And he was for quite a long time in coma, and they maintained him alive artificially. And then one moment, my family and my mother, they wrote to me, and they asked me, what would you decide? We can switch the machinery off, the artificial breathing and so on. What would you do? And I said, switch it off.
Yes.
Switch it off. He never liked to be in hospital. Maybe he would come back and he would be not in good conditions. And yeah, maybe. He was able to shoot down a dog. I was able to shoot down Uncle Who. No problem. And they did. Be compassionate, but really compassionate. Don't become a vegan. Become a farmer. Taking care for 10 years of that animal, and then in the end you will eat it. But if the animal would fall down somewhere, you risk your life to save the life of that tiny little animal. And then after time, then you eat it. Don't go into these strange philosophies, then believing that you are not only good, you are better than other people. No.
Well, everyone
Show
can
that
do
you
what
are
they
good.
want to do, right? You really want to be vegetarian? Well, okay, be vegetarian.
Well, if you don't like, if you come to smell meat or whatever, you don't want to eat it, well, then don't eat. But not because someone told you that it is very intelligent to do that. No, it's not intelligent. No. It's nothing. Become a real human being. And not the other sheet, no. That does not work for us. Okay, go on.
Once we arrived downtown, we went to a large department store. I was used to hardly ever getting a gift. The entire family was too busy with themselves and had little time to care for the offspring. But that day, I gathered all my courage and asked my mother to buy me a plastic boat. A red motorboat with yellow seats and a yellow windshield. I made a promise that if she bought me that boat, I would never ask for another gift again. And I achieved my goal. When I got back home, I started playing with the motorboat, only to realize a few days later that my gift might have been a small bicycle instead.
That's how we are. That's how we work. It's endless. Endless.
Well then, our ego consciousness never gives up making us dissatisfied, casting our eyes on the future, and thus not allowing us to live and take full advantage of the present moment, in the future or in the past. A realization that stayed with me for the rest of my life. And these days, it's the colors from yellow to orange to red that make me feel good. Even the national flag of the country that welcomed me so kindly is yellow and red. And everything around us too. Well, most things.
Yes, you have to feel. What makes you feel good? What really makes you feel good?
Yes. Shall
You
we
perceive life by feeling, not by thinking about it, by feeling. Will we stop here?
Shall we take a break and feel
feel?
life and how we feel until we come back another day?
Okay.
Yes.
We could do that.
Very good.
You want to show your skinny dog?
You can do that.
I will stand up a moment. I turn the camera. I
Yes.
say goodbye to you, and now let's see.
Okay, just have to turn it a
Will you let
little
me
bit.
know if the skinny one is on the
Yes.
screen, okay? Skinny
Yes.
one. Look, now you will become very famous, skinny one.
There she is. Ah, Flo Kiki.